And welcome to another episode of Quackaholics Anonymous. This is episode number 5. And due to a discussion I was seeing on social networking, I thought I would do this one about this elusive, bizarre thing that the Quackaholics call the pink cloud. Granted, it's kind of hard to be happy in Quackaholics Anonymous when you're sober for any length of time. In fact, the first time I remember seeing somebody smash down in a meeting over his pink cloud was a new guy. He'd only been to like 5 or 6 AA meetings, and he'd been in the program, I think, a little bit over a week and a half, and he was called on, and he happened to be in a good mood, which is a crime in Quackaholics Anonymous. You're not allowed to be happy unless you're either abasing yourself and putting yourself down, or unless you're telling some story about what a badass you are. You can't be happy because you're happy to be sober. But in this particular case, this guy had been, I don't know, a little over a week and a half in, and he got called on, and he had spoke that he was feeling a lot better, which it took me a little bit longer than a week when I quit drinking this very last time and many other times to feel better. But that's neither here nor there. He had said he felt better, and he was kind of having his first good day since he had quit drinking, and that by going to the meetings and listening to the people talking, that he could see there was going to be a lot more to this program than just staying away from alcohol. Little did he know it was a freaking cult religion that he had just gotten himself into. I didn't know this either at that time. But anyway, after he got done sharing, the chairperson had to call on the next 3 or 4 people that were all old timers, and of course each one had to participate in this big pile-on where they all really indirectly tried to smash them down, and they tried to talk about new people with their pink clouds and how they were going to fall off those pink clouds, and it was only going to be a matter of time before they were going to be drunk again. And some asshole had to talk about, I had 4 years of sobriety at one point, and in my 5th year, when I just started my 5th year, I was ready to commit suicide. And then some other bastard got called on, and he had to talk about how in 10 years sobriety he was loading a gun and holding it to his head. Yeah, real attractive. Attraction, not promotion. Well, that looks real attractive to me, listening to a bunch of miserable old fucks bash somebody because he dared be happy on his own in sobriety. But that was one of the first memories I can recall of that happening to somebody, and I began to notice that as a common trend. Like when someone got, 80, 90 days and was feeling good, it was almost like it pissed them off to see anybody happy through quitting drinking. Just by quitting drinking on their own, that they would feel better. They kept, they would use that term, and I heard it many times over the years, well, he's on a pink cloud or she's on a pink cloud. There was a guru lady in one of the meetings that used to tell all of her new sponsees she had kind of control over all the women in that particular home group, and she would always tell them right around the time they were about to celebrate their first year that it was going to be a long, hard fall from that pink cloud into reality. In other words, every opportunity they can when you're new or when you got a little time, or any opportunity when you feel good, is another excuse for them to use their license of bullying and intimidation and mind fucking you, where you can break yourself, where they can break your self-confidence a little bit more, and where they can make you a little bit more dependent on them. And it's really strange to me now that I've gotten out of it, that an organization that's supposed to be about helping people quit drinking is obsessed with making people miserable when they get happy during the time when they're quitting drinking, where they're obsessed with making you constantly degrade yourself about everything. They're constantly trying to break your self-confidence. They're constantly trying to break your ego. And there's none of the, I knew some 20-year guys that wanted to tell people that they were a lot like Buddhists in reducing their egos and shit like that. I wanted to say, you motherfuckers are about as far away from Buddhism, as anything I can personally think of. You are the complete antithesis, of Buddhism. The last thing that Buddhists would teach you to do is sit on your glorified thrones and run your fucking mouths about what badasses you are and how much better you are than everybody else and bully the less fortunate. Okay, I don't know where you got the idea that you're some old timer Buddhist by your behavior, but unless the fact is they're really just that delusional. That was one mind game I never could figure out in all my years in AA, whether they were really that delusional or whether they just thought that by talking all these grandiose talking in terms and everything that they had everybody fooled. Some of them, I believe, were just downright sociopaths it was all a game to them. I had one good sponsor like that, and I say good because after he was done screwing up my life, during the period I was with him, he pretty much killed any faith I had in AA at that time, and it was dwindling before I got involved with him. But and he was another one. He had to crush you every time you felt good in sobriety. He would tell the sponsees, and he'd tell me the same thing, well, you're a ticking time bomb. It's only a matter of time. One of the reasons why I believe that the program has such a high rate of relapsing in it, because you're not made to feel like you're really making any progress. You're discouraged when you actually begin to feel better. And, one thing that I've noticed that happens to me since I quit AA and since I got away from the cult is when I got to feeling better after I dried out from my last drunken binge, real bad drunken binge, was I started wanting to do things in my life again. And what I mean by doing things is I wanted to, I had been allowing this driver's license issue to just sit on the back burner for 2 or 3 years, and it just been barely scraping little monthly minimum payments here and there and trying to take care of it. I had resigned myself to the fact I might not ever get it back. Since leaving AA and since getting away from all of that self-defeated bullshit that they try to preach to everybody all the time, and it gets into your brain whether you like it or not. It's there. It took me some time to deprogram from a lot of that, but I started realizing there were things I wanted to accomplish and things I wanted to do. And one thing I put on my number one list when I got to feeling better and my head got a little bit clearer was, what? Why am I fucking around letting this driver's license sit here and I'm not going out and aggressively trying to get this back, trying to make this happen? Well, I threw all my self-will, I guess is the word they would use. I just call it plain old determination. Behind that, I was, lo and behold, able to get my license back very quickly within a couple of months. It was a long, arduous process, and it wasn't easy. And I'm not saying that's going to be the case for everybody, but I noticed when my brain cleared out, I wanted to do things to take care of my own life. I had certain bills that had piled up that I'd been ignoring, and I had to get on the phone to these people. But for me, doing those things made me feel a whole lot better. Now, AA would have just called that a pink cloud. They would have discouraged me from actually trying to take control of my life and do something about my life. I remember early on, one time when I had had a real bad relapse and I was trying to get back in, and I had thought that I was naive enough at that time period to think that a sponsor was someone you talk to about something useful, and was trying to explain to him my situation. He interrupts me and he says, you don't need to be worried about jobs. You don't need to be worried about your rent. You just need to worry about being sober. Being sober don't pay your fucking rent, and being sober doesn't bring you in a weekly check when you're unemployed and you're out looking for work, and being sober doesn't take away all the consequences that you may or may not have reaped due to drunkenness or due to your everyday life. It doesn't do any of that, but they don't want you to think about reality. They want you to sit in a meeting all the time, and they want your life to get progressively worse so that you'll become more dependent on them. And it's a real funny thing I've noticed that a large majority of the bullying old timers I knew, the ones that were, like the last fat pile of shit that I had for a sponsor, they don't accomplish anything in life. They made a career out of AA. They sit in 2 and 3 meetings a day, and they sit all the time. And in between the meetings, they're involved with other AA related crap. A lot of them I knew they drew some kind of disability, and I'm not downing people with disability, okay? I don't want that to be misinterpreted. But these are people that could work if they'd wanted to. These weren't disabled people. And in fact, it pisses me off all the more when I used to see those guys getting disability, when I was thinking to myself, there's a lot of people out here on the streets right now struggling with real disabilities that they can't seem to get, that they get denied. while leeches like these AA old timer guru motherfuckers sit in those meetings and avoid life, a lot of them still, 20 years later, and they're still living with their parents, and I'm not down in people who live with their parents. God, I fell on hard times when I was right at 30 and had to move back in with my mom. I mean, I'm not saying it don't happen, but I'm saying that these AA career gurus never have anything in life that they've accomplished other than being in AA. So I've often kind of wondered why I would want to ask them for advice about what to do with my own personal life. I mean, no wonder they don't want to. They tell you that you don't need to worry about that right now. You just need to worry about staying sober, because as long as you're just staying sober, they got all kinds of cult bullshit that they can hand at you straight out of their big book or their 12 and 12 or their As Bill Sees It or whatever the fuck it is they use on you. Because that's something they're qualified to talk about. If you tried to talk to them about, situations with bills and bankruptcies or mortgages or, employment, things that real people in the real world have to deal with, they wouldn't be able to tell you that because they've never had to deal with anything like that. They made a career out of going to AA. I remember I had gone to night meetings only for oh God, for the first 4 years I was sober. I mean, that was just kind of the way it worked. You work during the day, you go at night, etc. And after a brief period where I was changing jobs, at the time I got one, and the shift was going to be from 3 to 11. And I was going to a noon meeting. It was at the same place. It was like one of these AA clubhouses, which, by the way, if you've ever seen an AA clubhouse, you know that there's a lot of people that just make a occupation out of living at the AA clubhouse. I don't know how these people live. I don't know how these people take care of themselves. I don't know how these people pay their fucking rent. I mean, they do nothing but drink coffee and sit at the AA clubhouse. But I was going into that meeting at the noon meeting. It was before I was going to start my shift later on in that afternoon, and it was the very same people that I was seeing every night when I was going to the night meetings. In other words, this idea that I was going to see a whole new crowd of people at a noon meeting, that was blown completely out of the water the minute I walked through the door. It's like, well, these are all the same people I see at night up here. And no wonder they don't want you to be happy and have a pink cloud, because God forbid that might invalidate their whole dour cult religion of unhappiness. And the pink cloud is not a mystery, okay? It's just not. I mean, I was afraid to feel good in sobriety when I was in AA, and I hate using words like sober and sobriety, and the only reason I'm using these terms is for want of a better term. I mean, I don't like saying dry time either, because that's another Quackaholic Anonymous term. And I'm still trying to find good substitutes to take the place of them, because even the word spirituality is ruined for me, and it's really kind of a downer on my end, because I am not really so much spiritual. I just can't stand to bring up that word, but I like to read about things of that nature, and I like to study things of that nature, otherworldly and everything else. Some of it ranges from crackpot ideas to actually pretty sensible stuff. I mean, I'm not going to go into detail about all of it, but I can't use the word spiritual anymore, because they've just ruined that word for me. Now, maybe over a period of time, I won't, have such an allergic reaction to spiritual. But I was, speaking to someone I know personally that's kind of involved in he's kind of into pagan ideals like I am, and he had mentioned that he didn't really consider paganism a religion. He considered it his spirituality, and just inside, I was like, ugh. Come up with something better than that, because I just got out of a religious cult a little over a year and a half ago, and I'm still having problems with that. Well, almost 2 years now. But I remember before I got a little sidetracked there, I was going to say about the pink cloud. They act like there's some mysterious thing that happens in your first year when you're happy, and they can't stand to see that. I'll reiterate that again. And it's really no mystery at all what it is. I mean, I never felt happy in AA when I was drinking or not drinking. Even when I was drying out for the very first time in AA, I didn't feel happy with that. What I felt like was was miserable because all I got was unhealthy family members I was living with at the time and going to meetings and getting more reinforced misery because, all they'll do is tell you everything is your fault in life. And all these inventories do is just you listing all these bad things about yourself. Like it was kind of like, they said to do an adequate 4 step. Somebody was telling me you list your fears and your resentments and your sex. And I was thinking, well, there's more to me in life, and I'm not no deep dude, but there's more to me than just fear, resentment, and sex. I mean, I would like to think that's kept true of most people in general. But when I first quit drinking after I left AA, I'm going to think, I can't really remember when that last drunken binge was. I know it was sometime last winter, so it's been a little over a year ago since that binge happened. And I had managed to go through that I think it was like a 10-day period. I was trying to taper off. I was trying to keep from getting drunk every day, but I was trying to drink from getting sick. It was needless to say, I don't need to give you all the horrible details of that because it was just a bad experience. I think anybody who's been through it knows what I'm talking about. But I remember right around the time the springtime hit, I took up running. I need to get back into running, but I just haven't been able to do it in this nasty, wet, cold weather. I just can't bring myself to do it. But I started running to try to feel better. And I remember, I think it was like 4 or 5 months later, it was right in the middle of the spring, I had ran 3 miles. I ran 3 miles around this park, and then I ran from the park up this hill that was overlooking the interstate traffic on a bridge. And sun was kind of, setting and everything, and I was looking at the traffic, and there was just this rush that already comes with it, with exercise, but there was also just this really good feeling deep down inside of me, and I just felt like, this is really awesome to feel this good. I haven't felt this good in years. Now, of course, if you've gone to AA, they'd have called that a pink cloud, and they'd have heaped shit on you and all of that. But it occurred to me what all of this is, these so-called pink clouds. It's no mystery, okay? The fact of the matter was I was feeling that euphoric because, after months and months of drinking vodka in the morning and drinking a little over a fifth of vodka a day and not eating and not sleeping and not taking care of myself and having to struggle through a work day, either hungover or sick, or drunk, after a period of time away from alcohol, well, hell, your system starts to heal itself. You're getting rest again. You're eating again. Exercising again. You're kind of becoming, your body's not having to constantly fight a toxic amount of liquor in the system all day, every day. So it's only natural you feel better. It's only natural that you feel kind of euphoric even. There's no spiritual mystery. They say we deal with alcohol and it's cunning, baffling, and powerful. It's a fucking liquid in a bottle, okay? I mean, it's a liquid in a bottle that can't even come after you unless you open the bottle. So I don't really understand how it's supposed to be so cunning, baffling, and powerful. However, it would work if you were going to start a 12-step program. Well, you wouldn't start a 12-step program, strike the fact that I ever said that, but it would work in deprogramming. You could say, remember that we deal with quackaholics, and quackaholics, they're not really powerful and they're not really cunning. They're more like stupid, dishonest, and not powerful at all, or something like that. I don't know. You'd have to give me a few minutes before I can come up with something really witty. I'm not good at being witty on cue. But it strikes me as really odd that an organization, it really furthers my own belief that, and I've heard it reiterated by many other people, and the more I think about it, the more true it is, AA has nothing to do with quitting drinking whatsoever. They're not about even wanting you to quit drinking and be happy. AA is about submission to Bill W.'s phony cult religion. That's what it's about. And there's a few different ways of actually proving that. I mean, even though I've taken a lot of time talking about pink clouds and the way they crush you for them, think about this. I haven't been in AA now for almost 2 years. And I can't tell you when the last time was I drank. I just really can't, but it's been a very long time. My life has gotten consistently better. My life has got consistently more manageable, to rip off another term from them. My life has actually fallen into place, and I'm doing quite well. And do you think anybody in AA would say, good for me, that I'm doing well? All those people that kicked me when I was down, when I was drunk, do you think any of them would say, well, I'm glad to hear he's doing well? No, they would not. You know it as well as I do if you've been in those rooms long enough. They would say, well, he's a dry drunk. It won't be long before he'll be drunk again. He's not really happy. He's not happy by doing it his way. He'll be drunk in no time. Well, some people think they're smart and can do it on their own, but he can't do it. In other words, they're really not happy if you quit drinking and actually are successful in quitting drinking even. They're not happy with that. Now, they want you to either fail and die when you leave the cult, or they want you to come crawling back in there, begging them and licking their asses and telling them how alcohol is beating your ass out there and how you got to come crawling back to them. Okay, it's nothing whatsoever to do about people quitting drinking. It's people who are in submission to the cult religion of Bill W. is totally what it's all about. Every time I ever saw somebody leave AA when I was in there, they either said that they weren't alcoholic to begin with, otherwise they would have been unable to leave AA. They would tell them, well, like they would me, he's a dry drunk. It won't be long before he'll be drunk. Or they would, I had that one sponsor that used to just say, well, they weren't an alcoholic. They were probably a drug addict. There's a big difference between drug addicts and alcoholics. They behave like there's some real scientific classification for these made-up terms that have no basis in reality whatsoever. And I've also got to touch on this as well, the self-identifying as an alcoholic all the time, all the days of your life, even if you haven't touched a bottle of vodka in 25 or 30 years, to me is also very unhealthy. It's another way of constantly labeling yourself, and it goes along with a whole AA program of constantly demeaning yourself, putting yourself down, falling in line with their narrative that you've never done anything good in your life, that you've never been a good person, that you've never been what's in their 12 and 12, a friend or a wife or husband or, anything worthwhile. Every single horrifying attribute that they can think of and throw at you and say, well, that's what you are if you're an alcoholic. It's more submission. It's more submission, and the religion of fear that they have, I mean, it pales in comparison because there's no other organized religion I can think of off the top of my head that actually tries to keep people in a state where they have to constantly degrade themselves all the time. I'm no personal fan, and I'm not going to use that word organized religion because they've ruined that too for me. In fact, it used to kill me how they'll sit in those meetings and they'll say that they're spiritual, not religious, but they will bash any other faith and any other religion as though their program is so much more far superior to that. In other words, they'll tell you this is a spiritual program, not a religious program. We have no problem with you if you're a religious person. Then they'll proceed to tell you how much smarter they are than all the world's religions combined, and they'll also tell you your religion doesn't matter because you drank while you were religious. So obviously you are invalidated, and it's only us you can turn to, our religion where all you can hope for in AA is to get double-digit years so you can sit around and prey on new people, exploit new people, and put other people down and hear yourself talk. Who wants to hear themselves talk for 20 years about the same fucking topic? I mean, and the same things and the same drunkalogs. I mean, who would really want that? I mean, you'd have to be awful empty to need that as a sense of fulfillment. I'd like to think that once you put the bottle behind you, there's other things in your life that you would want to pursue and accomplish that wouldn't have nothing to do with drinking. I mean, I've seen people die in the program and they'll say, well, at least the guy died sober. I mean, is that all you got? Is that all you got to say? I mean, I'm not saying I'm going to be some Leonardo da Vinci or I'm going to be some, great inventor that'll be remembered for hundreds of years in history. But I would like to think if there's anybody who knows me around the time I die or whenever, that they would have something to say about me other than, well, he died without drinking. Especially when you got a program where its founder, Bill W., died begging for booze. That's another thing they don't tell you about in the AA history when they're telling you this wonderful story about some guy named Ebby coming to see Bill. They don't tell you Ebby died drunk, and they don't tell you Bill died begging for a drink, because of the fact that that doesn't fit their little miserable narrative. I actually had an old timer tell me one time it's a good thing they didn't let Bill drink on his deathbed, or it would have invalidated the whole program. The fact he was begging for liquor on his deathbed invalidates the whole fucking phony program right there, okay? You don't have no spiritual experience. Do I ever have to do this, that, and the other again if you're still begging for it years later. But anyway, that's going to be pretty much the topic on this one. The whole topic is about the ever elusive pink cloud that doesn't exist. If you quit drinking and you get to feeling better on your own, and you're still in AA, do not give those good feelings away, or let those AA people step on those feelings or crush those feelings. And don't let them take away your determination to better your own life, because they certainly don't want to do that. Because I can remember when I first got sober, talking about possibly trying to get back into school, possibly trying to do a couple of other things that I wanted to do, trying to get out of the gutter in which I was living. And I was just told that that was my ego talking, and it was my ego telling me not to get sober and work the program, that it was my own selfish desire. Never let them tell you that shit, because I guarantee you this, without your own determination and your own selfish desires, you won't get very far in the rooms of Quackaholics Anonymous. I guess that's about it. I can calm down now. I get a little pissy when I get to talking about them bastards. But until next week, I'll see you then.